Hey, Chris, we copy, and we're currently thinking about it, but I do want to let you know that we do see SSC1, so thank you for your work.
Okay. I just manually connected it to the ISS underscore MSL underscore 2.4 gigahertz, so you should see it now.
This is Mission Control Houston. In addition to this laptop work that Cassidy is discussing with the team here on the ground now, the main activity on his timeline today was some routine maintenance work on the Combustion's integrated rack. That's a specialized experiment facility located in the Destiny Laboratory, and it's actually part of the Fluids and Combustion facility, which also houses the Fluids integrated rack. We have here on the phone with us today Robert Corbin, the Fluids and Combustion Facility Manager from NASA's Glenn Research Center. Thanks so much for joining us, Robert.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Well, I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about these facilities and what goes into designing a combustion experiment facility to work in space. I expect that's a little tricky.
Well, the combustion integrated rack actually is maybe a second-generation rack we used to fly on the space shuttle back in the 80s, and CM1 and CM2, Combustion Module 1, Combustion Module 2. And obviously one of the major designs is to contain any fire that you're burning in some kind of controlled chamber. So the main feature of the combustion integrated rack is the combustion chamber.
Okay, and so I guess the combustion chamber essentially has to, in addition to holding the experiment, has to protect the rest of the station from that experiment.
Yeah, it does, and it also sets the environment for which the principal investigator, wants to see during a series of data points. So, Chris will be going in to the chamber today to pull out, basically the experiment, and he'll be replacing the fuel reservoir in there so that they can continue to do their experimentation this week.
And we're actually seeing some video of him doing that work from earlier this morning now. This is recorded video that shows him looking inside the combustion integrated rack and getting ready to do some of those change outs.
Mm-hmm.
So it holds, I guess, you can change out the different types of fuel so that the researchers can see the effects of different types of materials as they're ignited in space?
Yeah, I mean, this one is all focused on droplets, liquid type combustion, phenomena. So he's replacing one of the fuel reservoirs, and they're looking at heptane. The researchers have a series of different fuels they look at, and they also change the environment inside the chamber to either enrich it in helium or enrich it in xenon or whatever that have different characteristics, so that they can see how it extinguishes. They kind of understand a lot more about the phenomena of combustion by doing that.
And I think one of the reasons they're interested in that is because fire behaves a little differently in space than it does here on the ground. Is that right?
It does, yes. First of all, if you see like a candle, you'll see like a, convective flow around it, and you'll see the point, as it, gravity, obviously heat rises, things like that. In space, you'll see a nice blue burning flame ball, and yet it also burns much longer. And what they're really concentrating on is one, whether or not we can even ignite it in that particular environment, and then two, once we do, they want to look at how it extinguishes in two different phenomena. One of the things they're starting to see as well is what they call a cool flames phenomena, where the flame is visibly out, but it still has a very rapid evaporation, and it's called cool flame. So it's actually a flame combustion process ongoing.
Yeah, I remember reading about that, and I think it was a bit of an unexpected finding. Is that right?
Well, yeah, they've seen it a little bit before, I think, in some of the shuttle experiments, but now they're concentrating more and more on that. That area is sort of new, and trying to understand a lot more about what's happening there so that they can understand better, some of the combustion phenomena on the ground, such as knocking and, diesel engines and things like that, so that they can make, more efficient engines, more combustion, efficient combustion processes.
And this rack has been on the space station for a few years now, I think. And
Right.
do you feel like we've been getting good data out of it?
Yeah, let's see, we were launched in, I believe it was 2008. And so, yeah, I think it was on STS-126. And so, yeah, we've been getting a lot of good data. You know, the kind of the difference with the combustion experiments is they're developing a huge matrix. So, you know, like this particular set of experiments, they're doing something like 120 different, data points just to understand better what they're seeing and what they're experiencing in the different atmospheres. So it takes a long time, and so some of these experiments aren't just a one-time deal. It goes over years, and so, yeah, we've been getting a lot of good data coming back.
Great. Well, so the combustion integrated rack is combined with the fluids integrated rack into one facility. What is that, just for convenience and space, or is there a reason to have those two together?
No, actually, the combustion integrated rack, which Chris is working on today, obviously is in U.S. lab, and then right to the right of it is the fluids integrated rack. Sometimes you'll see it on the camera. It'll have a kind of a grid-looking net in front of it because it's what they call an ARIS type rack, which means it floats or can float off of some kind of an active isolation system. So that's right to the right of the SIR, if you're looking at it. But the FIR and the SIR, they have a lot of common hardware between them in terms of the way that it deals with its interfaces with the avionics to the station, as well as its power distribution. But and they also both have what we would kind of call a optics bench within those racks that kind of slides out when the crew needs to get access to the back of the rack. So that's where some of the common areas are. And then after that, there's a lot of big differences. The FIR is a very large open volume, and in it right now is the light microscopy module, which is a microscope that is fully automated to do a lot of the science that we need to do in a very microscopic, research kind of area. And so there is some big differences also between the two racks.
Okay, and you just mentioned that the microscope that is in the fluids rack at the moment is fully automated. I think that's generally the case for these experiments, that the crew doesn't have to do a whole lot of work with them other than get them started. Is that?
Both of them, yeah, very similar. When these were designed, the concept was that we pretty much thought the crew's time was going to be very precious, and it's sort of still the case. So we did a lot of things where we wanted the crew to interact with our different pieces of hardware to set up the experiments, but then they could close the doors and kind of walk away, sometimes for days and sometimes for weeks, and we can do experiments. And then they would have to come back and then, just like he's doing today, change out the fuel or change out an igniter that may burn out or whatever. But most of it, we were not having a crew's hands-on doing the experiments, like the MSG, which is also next to the SIR. The crew has a lot of on-hands experiment work, which obviously they like doing, but because of the nature of the flames in the combustion rack and the microscopic nature of the work we had to do in the FIR, we had to automate a lot of that stuff.
Okay. Well, anything else that we should be looking forward to with either of these facilities? Any experiments coming up that will be especially interesting?
Well, the LMM, the light microscopy module, they're going to go in, and we had a little bit of an issue a couple weeks ago. The crew's going to go in and take care of that, and we'll be back up and running in a couple weeks. Again, they'll be back looking at colloid type research to better understand the phenomena, basically, of particles interacting and making structures in space when you have no gravity. And the combustion, he's also going to be doing something we haven't done since we launched, which is not that complicated, but today Chris will also be changing out the seals actually on the combustion chamber. Those do need to be replaced periodically just to maintain, that we get a vacuum in there and we can keep everything that needs to stay in there in the chamber. So he'll be doing that as well today.
Okay. Well, we'll watch out for that as well. Thank you so much for talking with us. We really appreciate it.
All right. Appreciate it.
Thank you. This was Robert Corbin, the Fluids and Combustion Facility Manager from NASA's Glenn Research Center.